I sense a glitch in the matrix.
Oh, déjà vu.
Hi, and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Dark Season 3.
And so it begins, all anew.
If you're a fan of Dark, you no doubt will have watched it already, like me, and you've been excited ever since you saw what happened and the cliffhanger they left us on at the end of Season 2. You'll probably be tantalizingly watching all those little clips that have been on YouTube, all the trailers, the teaser trailers, everything. But the day has finally arrived and we've got 8 episodes. Some are an hour long, some are that 15-minute mark, and I'm here to talk about it, a review that is spoiler-free. Jump down in the comments below, let me know what is your favorite episode in this season, what is your favorite series, and who is your favorite character. I thought about doing a recap for season 1 and 2, and the more I've thought about it, the more my brain started to spiral out of control. Like, what can I say? How much do I need to say to trying to explain the multiple timelines and who's actually responsible for what and what relationship is doing what and when? And I decided just to leave a link below to my first 2 reviews, also to IMDb's recap, because out of all of those that I've seen, I think theirs is the best so far. I know Netflix did one, which I thought was okay, but IMDb is probably the most coherent as you can be. So if you need a recap before you watch a review, or if you're going into a season 3 and you want to know or want to refresh yourself, then those are really good reference points. I have to say, it was bittersweet watching this, because this is probably some of the best TV, especially original series from Netflix. It's a German series, obviously. I love watching it in its original language. I keep swapping between the language of English and the language of German and dubbing in English to see which is better, or if the voice actors have gotten better. And I think they're okay, they're not great. But the original is always the way for me to go, so you can get that kind of emotional content, that emotional voice moments that the actors give in their original language. I'm going to say again that you need to watch it in their original language, because there are moments here when the story starts revealing what is happening. Some of the characters get very emotional, and I think you don't quite get that in the dubbing, but that's just my 2 cents on that. The cinematography is fantastic, but what I think draws everybody to this series is obviously the story and how complex it is, and the more it kind of gives you answers, it gives you more questions. And I have to say, the 3rd season does this again in classic style. The first 3.5 episodes are definitely going to leave you going, wait, what? Isn't this the series that you're meant to be answering those questions? It's really from about episode 4 that there are some answers, but it isn't until episode 8 that you finally get to understand what has happened, which is great. My only drawback for this series is that there is a bit of padding for characters, and I wouldn't have said that if it was season 1 or 2, but for me, when I came into season 3, I just wanted to know more. I just wanted to know the answers. I kind of didn't want to go back into those characters, because I'd been with them for 2 seasons. I've seen them have adultery and have sex with each other and just mess up each other's lives, very broken relationships in this very, very sad town, no matter what timeline you're in. We've seen all that, and they do mess around with those characters and those things again. We also are time jumping all over the place. Which is interesting, because I've always loved the set design and the costume design and the score for each time zone. I think it's very interesting the way they put that together, the way you kind of know where you are, even though they don't always tell you. Sometimes you get a date up top there, because sometimes it's such a drastic change that you do need to know when or where you are. The end of season 2, I hope that you heard it's a non-spoiler for season 3, but if you haven't seen season 2, you shouldn't be watching this review. But at the end of season 2, we were confronted with the fact that there could be another world, and so this season explores those storylines. Johannes has always been the protagonist, but there is this storyline between Johannes and Martha.
Why did you say that name?
As they try to stop this perpetual loop that keeps happening. And that is basically the major arc of this series. But what I love about this series is it always keeps you guessing. Just when you think the show has told you what it's going to be about, or what it is, or what's happening, it throws something else into the mix, or a different timeline, or another character that you thought couldn't possibly be there, or another character that you thought was one thing but is another thing. Not doing spoilers. The special effects again look fantastic, especially in this season, because when they start showing the timey-wimey stuff and how they do that, when that is incorporated with some of the special effects, I really like how it looks, kind of based in reality with science, but also very cool to look at. Reminds me of like Doctor Who, that kind of stuff.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Surprisingly, season 3 reminded me of the OA in its complexity in the storyline, when you know you're finally getting answers, but then it opens up a new storyline and you went, oh, I get that answer, but now what does that mean with this? That is how complicated and interesting this story is, which is why I think it's one of Netflix's greatest IPs that they bought, obviously, and I think it's going to keep people guessing. The characters in here are fantastic, the acting is very good, and the cinematography and story editing, as always, is superb. Apart from the slight padding of me wanting to know the answers sooner, I think for most people this series is going to be bittersweet, because by the time you reach that end, or the time you reach those last couple of episodes, you're going to realize that this is the last you're going to get of Dark, because it's a complete story. It's also great that we have a complete story, and it's not going to be around for years to come. They had an idea, they mapped it out specifically. Can you imagine how complex the characters are, and the story, I guess the storyline had to be for them to have worked out all of these timelines and what every character did. You can see how intricate the storyline is, and as they reveal certain things, my mind just kept getting more and more blown, as I thought, wow, imagine how long it would have taken them to work that thread out when it comes to this thread out, what it means for that timeline. Which I think is very clever, very interesting to watch, and a lot of fun. But by the time you get to the end, that last episode, episode 8, is a exposition monologue episode. There's a lot happening visually, but there's also a lot of exposition, because it's such a complicated story that the characters obviously have to tell you what's happening, because we don't have another 2 or 3 episodes for them to show us. So there's a lot of monologuing going on. That's not to say it isn't interesting, and the way they do it with the characters that are explaining to the audience but through themselves having these interactions is great. There is a moment that I also thought, wow, this is just very sad. Yeah, I was surprised by how emotionally entangled I was with these characters, and when I got to the end, I thought, wow, that is a great ending. I couldn't have asked it to be anything else. I wouldn't have wanted it to be anything else.
What time did you come from?
The question isn't what time. The question is what world.
If you love the ending, let me know in the comments below and what you thought about it. Remember not to spoil anything for anyone, because there's a lot of spoilers to be had in this, although they may not understand it. There were a lot of references that I really enjoyed to the previous seasons, how they drew everything around in full circle. Again, the writing is spectacular in this. It's one of my favorite series for sure. I have heard a lot of people saying that it is the best Netflix series and one of the best series. I'd have to agree with that. There's very few that are as good at this. I wouldn't want to rank it, because I think it's like its own unique thing. So I'm going to give this an A+. So chat to me in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about it. But most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.